Welcome to O's Across the Pond, the show covering all things Baltimore Orioles, but from a fresh European perspective. Join us for the highs, the lows, the heartbreaks, and everything in between. Whether you're a die-hard fan or just discovering Birdland, this is your home for passionate, across-the-pond Orioles talk. Let's dive in.
Welcome back to another O's Across the Pond Midweek Shakedown. Grant joins me today. We're going to be talking through the Cardinal series. But firstly, I want to discuss some of the findings from yesterday's podcast. So, listeners, if you're not aware, we had Calvin Meyer on from the Baltimore Sun, and it made for a great episode. Me and Simon ran that episode, and we managed to learn so much, and our listeners over here in Europe also managed to learn so much, and also kind of got a different view on things as we go. So, Grant, firstly, welcome back. It's always good to have you on.
Thanks. Thought you'd replaced me yesterday.
No, Simon just filled in for you. What were you doing? Golfing?
Birthday party, so nice evening, family party.
Fair enough. So, Grant, what did you make of yesterday's episode, and then what would you say was the biggest talking point in that episode?
Yeah, no, I thought Jacob was fantastic. The way he explained things was really, really good. It certainly put a different slant on my way of thinking that I've discussed here, where the Orioles are going to be sellers. We're not going to get back into this season. We're going to trade probably 4 or 5 players away and get a load of prospects back. So I think the way that he explained about the compensatory draft picks that would be available if we do get to the end of the season, there is potential for Mullins, O'Hearn, Eflin and Sagano all to get qualifying offers. Assuming that knock those back, we'll get 4 compensated draft picks in the first round of the draft. And I've been thinking about it today. We've chatted about it. I can completely see. I can see the Orioles going for that. I think we know.
Definitely.
We know how much Elias values the draft. Obviously, as Jacob explained, there is a number. There is a number of wins or some way of evaluating the prospects, because we will get offers for these players. Especially, I think Eflin and Sagano are extremely valuable. To any competing team.
Definitely, Shigano, with how he started. I think he is valuable to so many teams going down the stretch.
Now, if you look back to the last time the Orioles were sellers in 2022, we sold Jorge Lopez to the Twins, and we got back Cano and Cade Povich in that trade. Now they've been certainly useful players. Povich we'll talk about later, but a good starter is worth a lot more than Jorge Lopez was worth in 2022. So we may well get tested in that market for much, with some better players that could help the Orioles earlier than these draft picks. But we know how much Mike Elias values a draft. My other thing that I was thinking about today was, I think this for a while, all the trades that we see, the players that we brought in through the rebuild, teams do not trade away their best players. It doesn't matter who you've got, whether you've got Cedric Mullins, Ryan O'Hearn, you get something useful back for these guys, but teams do not trade away their top players, so you're not going to get first round draft picks back, first round level draft picks back from trading. So it does become Dean Kramer, Cade Povich level players that we probably get back. So it will be very interesting to see how that develops. I certainly would love to see, obviously, Mullins and O'Hearn playing with us for the rest of the season, just as a fan's point of view, but they do have value, certainly.
Yeah, I think we discussed it on Tuesday's episode when I was talking about obviously, if you had a choice now between O'Hearn and Cedric Mullins, who would you think? And as much as I love Cedric Mullins, I said at the time, look, it'd be O'Hearn, the one who would get the extension for me. I think you can build a core of a side around him. You see how well he performs. But then sitting down yesterday and speaking to Jacob, and when you hear about those picks that you could get, you're thinking, if we can somehow try and claw our way back towards 500 before the deadline, you then have a different. You're not going to be as aggressive seller as you would be. So does that lead you into the opportunity to make them qualifying offers? I think, look, it does make sense to trade Cedric Mullins if there's an offer there. But if there isn't, you've got the fallback. We'll give him give him the offer, and then obviously if he goes somewhere, you're going to get that pick in next year's draft. I think obviously we've got 2 compensatory picks this year.
Yeah. So I've looked at this previously because I was fascinated. The first time since I've really been following it closely where we have had these qualifying offers and we've had players that were able to be offered that kind of level of money. So at the moment, the draft, 13th of July starts. The Orioles have the 19th pick in the first round. But we also have the 30th and 31st pick, and that is because we made qualifying offers and then did not sign Corbin Burns and Anthony Santander. So that is effectively Diamondback's second round pick and Blue Jays' second round pick that we are getting. As an aside, the Yankees, the Mets and the Dodgers do not have any first round picks because of their salary levels. So the Yankees do not pick to 39, the Dodgers pick 40-41, the Mets pick 38. So that shows you that the additional talent that we will bring into the organisation that these other big spending teams will not be able to do. And as Jacob was saying, there is a potential for us to do something similar next year in the next year's draft, depending on how many players get through to the end of the season, how many qualifying offers we can make. Because obviously if somebody's injured, you can't really offer them 22 million to play next season if they're not going to be available. So you do need to kind of get these guys to the end of the season fit and healthy and playing reasonably well. But we could potentially do something similar and have as many as 4 of those extra first round picks. The other dynamic is that we will probably be one of the way we're going, will be one of the bottom sides that will be in the draft lottery for the first round draft pick. So we could get much higher than we've drafted in the last few years. So you're then looking at bringing 7 or 8 first round draft picks into the organisation across the next 13, 14 months. I can't see the way that we know that Michael Elias thinks and the way that he drafts. I can't see him not realising that and not wanting to get to that position. So it does just depend on how the rest of the season plays out and what kind of offers they do get for, as I said, these players that are coming up to free agency at the end of this season. Yeah,
I agree with you. I think it's starting to look like, again, a lot of us are being critical of Michael Elias, especially after spring training and the way he did during the off-season, or lack of. But it does kind of feel like it might be starting to, for him anyway, obviously not for us on the field at the moment, but for him anyway in the back office team, that it could be starting to fall into place again where you can utilise these picks.
I think the thing that I would say as well is, even as much as I was a supporter of the rebuild and got into it and realised the logic and what was happening, I don't have the stomach for another rebuild. I don't think David Rubenstein does either. So this strategy, obviously this season has gone how it's gone. It's unlikely we're going to get back into it. So that would be, in effect, making the most of it, whether you trade these guys or whether you get them qualifying offers. The other side of that coin is that you don't trade them and then they pick up injuries or whatever happens towards the end of the season and you can't then do that. But that's a relatively minor risk, but not insignificant. It would be it wouldn't be a rebuild. It would just be getting players into draft and making the most of this season. It wouldn't stop what we could potentially do next season. You don't know who you could get back trading. Obviously, we did get at one point Genny Arcano back, who was very impactful in that 2023 season.
Yeah, definitely.
You can't guarantee these things. That was a bit of a, a lottery pickup, effectively a raffle ticket. So we'll see what happens. I think we are in the Elias wheelhouse of where this is his strong suit and how he operates and how he thinks. So from that point of view, we've got to hope that he does his job as well as he's done previously.
I definitely think on the subject of, I mean, I'm the same. I haven't got the stomach for another rebuild. I don't think we're anywhere near that territory. Mainly just because of the amount of players we've got under control. We do stand to lose a few. But I think with Rubenstein coming in as well, I think he's come in to kind of back the general manager a little bit more, and we know that Mike Elias isn't the last of the big spenders. But as Jacob said yesterday, if he can go out in the off season, what he has to do in the off season is invest in the starting pitch, in the starting rotation, and get some support for the bullpen. And then I think you go into next season, and regardless of what happens this season, there's hope for next season and beyond.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking, because we were looking at the White Sox coming up. I did have a quick look. I've now taken off my screen, but I did have a quick look at where the Orioles stand in terms of stats, because obviously we expect the White Sox to be down there. So in terms of pitching, team ERA, go to team ERA. Team ERA, we are 29th out of 30 teams in terms of the ERA numbers that we have put up. So only the Rockies are worse than us. The White Sox, believe it or not, 22nd, so they're quite a bit better than us. In terms of batting average against our pitching staff, that is 29th. 275 opposing teams are batting against us, and whip 27th, 1.48. So those are just three horrendous numbers that we are in. We are not competitive in the pitching. It's all very well saying we'll get Eflin back, we'll get X, Y and Z. There's too many other guys that aren't doing it, and even as we saw this week, Eflin didn't have the best of starts himself, so he's only one person. So you're absolutely right what you're saying. The pitching, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how, if the hitting was exceptional, we're still not going to hit our way out of 29th level pitching, and it's got to be better than that. To be any kind of competitive team, you've got to be 15th or above in that, and allow another area to carry you.
Yeah, no. Another subject we spoke about yesterday on the pod with Jacob was the situation around Heston Kjerstad. But before we get onto that, obviously because of his performances in the Cardinals series, let's just have a little recap and talk through about the Cardinals series, and then we can talk about Heston Kjerstad. So, game 1 and 2, Grant.
Cardinal series started very well. We came off 2 wins in Boston, and we got a really, really good night and a good win, 5-2 in the first game. Big story was Charlie Morton finally doing the business. He went 6 innings, 4 hits, 2 earned runs, got the win. ERA down to 7.09, nothing to write home about, but it's a step in the right direction. In terms of the hitting, as we mentioned, or as I mentioned on Sunday's Monday night pod, Dylan Carlson came through. He has kept his form going from the weekend. Got a big hit, 3 RBIs, home run. Basically took the game away from the Cardinals at that point. Vern continues to do it, 3 for 4 he went. Just keeps doing the business. So 5-2, and I think I was certainly thinking at that point, do you know what, we can win this 2-1. We've got the White Sox coming up. You do have a chance to build some momentum. However, that was quashed in the drizzle of Tuesday night, wasn't it? Tuesday night we played.
Where are we on now? Thursday, yeah, Tuesday, yeah.
So unfortunately, Sagano, not the worst. Five and a third, gave up 8 hits, so he did get lucky with some decent fielding and some good catches, even from himself. 8 hits, gave up 3 earned runs, 3 runs, 3 earned runs. As I said, not the worst. He's been pretty good, but we did kind of need and want him to go a wee bit further. The bullpen was just about holding it together. Aitken had problems. Cano came in and got him out of it. We were still in the game, but then Brian Baker gave up a big home run to left field. Three runs at that point, and that was the crucial blow in the game. Mountcastle, you've been critical of him. He's had a good series. He had a good night. 3 hits, and unfortunately, only one player got RBIs, which was O'Hearn with a big hit, 3 RBIs. Kerstad getting an RBI as well. We did not have Adley Rutschman in those 2 games, so we had trump catching, didn't get anything going, unfortunately, with the bat. We will discuss. We think he's probably going to leave the roster at some point in the next few days.
Yeah, definitely, I think.
But that was game 2. So again, you're still thinking, well, you've won each. You've got a chance. Now you stayed up to watch game 3, Thomas.
Yeah, I'd already committed to the caffeine intake by the time that the delay came through. I mean, it was stupid. It was stupid, really, because anybody from any part of the world would have just looked at that and gone, there is going to be a delay here, but I still didn't learn my lesson. Yeah, look, game 3 last night, it's another defeat, but there was so many opportunities to win that game. I thought Kapovic was superb. I thought he had one bad inning. 6 strikeouts. He had that one bad inning. It just got away from him a little bit. Maybe he could have done with probably a mound visit in the 3rd, 4th. He was starting. By the end of the 4th, the lineup had been through twice, and he'd seen a lot of pitches from him. Maybe that is something that Mantelino is still learning. I don't know whether the pitching coach should have gone out there and had a chat, even just to calm him down, just remind him, look, you're 4 innings in, you've had 4 strikeouts, your placement of your pitches is spot on. Let's just kind of slow it down, just remember what you can do. Obviously that didn't happen. He had a poor 5th inning. He got pulled. I thought the bullpen did the job. The downfall last night was runners in scoring position. I think we were 3 for 17 runners in scoring position.
Yeah.
We've discussed it today in the group chat, and I replied to a tweet before on Twitter in regards to Adley Rutschman. Now look, Adley is struggling. He's been struggling. Everyone says it's been since the All-Star break last year. I've been vocal online, on the podcast, in the group about Adley Rutschman batting further down the order. Now, last night, these are just some notables from his performance last night, which someone's put up on Twitter. So, in the 1st, man on in 2nd, no outs, strikeout. In the 2nd, a man on in 2nd, 2 outs, strikeout. 4th, there was a man on at 2nd, 1 out, he popped out to left field. The 6th and the 9th, there was a man on in 1st, 1 out in the 6th, no outs in the 9th, a strikeout in the 6th, and a fly out to centre in the 9th. Now, from speaking today, and obviously I'd said I'd like to see O'Hearn batting number 2 in the lineup, and then when you've put it across the way, I kind of understand why he's not there. Obviously, Elias had been up there a couple of times. I would like to see Elias back up there. We know why. In theory, O'Hearn can't really bat up there, but Adley has to drop down the order.
So in that game, we had Rutschman and Henderson 2 and 3 combined for 0 for 10. And we had playing behind them, Carlson was 2 for 4 in the 9 spot, and Holiday was 3 for 5. So there was guys there that were on base for them each time. So yeah, I mean, Adley's a few days off. He's not done it. He's still batting 206. Henderson, I think we're both pretty comfortable that he is kind of just about back, up and running, and he's going to be hopefully the Gunnar Henderson that we know, above average hitter, above average defender. Just needs a spark. I think if he was playing behind somebody that was in a bit better form, I think that would help him quite a bit.
Yeah.
So you've got to say that for him. And yes, it does seem criminal for O'Hearn to be batting 5th. And one thing that I think we have seen with Mancini is he's been happier to not chop and change the lineup too much. He's tried to keep it consistent, so we have tended to have Holiday, Rutschman, Henderson, Mountcastle, O'Hearn batting in that order. But yeah, he has spoken about he doesn't want the 3 lefties all sitting there together and getting ganged up on with the relievers or even an opener. So I think you do need to have that, unless you're going to move Henderson down. I don't think we're going to have a big change to the lineup. Yes, I think when Westberg or even O'Neill or maybe even Laureano, if they were back and playing really well, then that's a different discussion. I don't know if you're getting enough out of the likes of Elias or Carlson to play them at 2. I don't think there's enough of a difference between what Rutschman's doing and what he can do, and what they might do or would do over an extended period. So I don't think the lineup is going to change dramatically. But yes, when there are players back, if they are hitting well, Rutschman probably does move down the order at that point.
Yeah, on the subject of Gunnar as well, I agree with you. I think he does need that spark. Obviously, having someone behind him that is playing better, or even ahead of him who's playing better, is obviously going to help. But sometimes, I love Gunnar, but sometimes I think he just lacks that little bit of clutch sometimes that you need to get. Again, that might come. We have seen it before in the past of them, but we need them to find something like that.
Yeah, I mean, Mountcastle certainly, he was 2 for 5 in game 3, so he's certainly done his bit that series. He is a streaky, he's a power hitter, he is streaky. So if that continues, then the top of the order, it still needs Rutschman Henderson to do to do what they're capable of, for us to actually go on any kind of run here. Yeah.
A player we mentioned before we went on to the Cardinals there, Heston Kjerstad.
Yeah.
Now this is a guy that I think quite a lot of people like and have got high aspirations for him. I think he's shown in glimpses, especially early when he came in for Cowser after during the Blue Jays series, when obviously Cowser got injured. He looked decent. He cooled off and it looked like he was picking up again, but he's just totally gone now. He just avoid. Currently he's batting 190 with an OPS of 545. Where do we stand on Heston Kjerstad?
Yeah, it was interesting listening to Jacob, and I think I do agree with him about the fact that he's almost lost his confidence because he's been asked to play in the field, and he doesn't feel he's good at that, or he's not comfortable at that. I don't think he's that bad, but I suppose you're starting off from a very low expectations from him. He's certainly not an all flying Cedric Mullins in the outfield. So it would be interesting. I think I suspect that Kerstad is going to get sent down when we start getting players back. So at the moment we've got Cowser and Westberg playing for Norfolk. Cowser is eligible to come off the IL on Friday. I suspect that is going to happen. If not Friday, then Saturday. probably is going to happen on Friday, and that probably means Trump. You can move Trump out of the roster, but then when you get Westberg or Laureano or O'Neill back, you're not going to have a space. And when Cowser's back, I would argue there's even less of a space for Kerstad. Where's he going to play? I think he's going to get sent down. Carlson has done enough, and he's certainly done in the last week to stay on the roster. It would, from a baseball performance point of view, it wouldn't be great to send Carlson down, and I don't think it would send the best signal to the players, that you can do this and you can get hits. And then you're discarded because we like this guy even though he's not done much. I think Kerstad has to go down just to keep things, as they should be in a competitive environment. Yes, at some point you do need to get him back up and get him at bats again, but I think he's going down when there is not a spot for him in the next week. That'll have happened.
I think a couple of things there. Carlson, he's done more than enough, and I think he needs to capitalise on him while he's hot at the moment, and he's doing things. Heston Kjerstad, they banked him over Stowers. We know what Stowers is doing at the moment. And people have said, and even I'd said, look, you need to give Kerstad that run that Stowers has had down at Miami, and you'll see it coming. But yeah, he is definitely going to drop down when we get players back. I was thinking that if as soon as Carl's was back, they might drop him down, but I think you're right. I think Trump will go back down. It makes more sense. But
yeah, I think only Trump needs to be DFA'd, so I don't think that's a big decision, though. I think you just need to do that. That's part of the. With Kerstad, I think Kerstad is a Ryan O'Hearn type role where he's going to DH, he's going to play a bit of first base, he's going to play a bit of corner outfield, but generally he's going to DH 3 or 4 games a week. There's not that spot for him. There might be next season, depending on what happens with Basallo or whoever else comes in. But that, I think, is the spot for him next season, as that kind of Ryan O'Hearn spot. That's an option. I don't think he's a full-time outfielder, as much as he may well improve over the years and get less bad. He just looks kind of awkward and not quite quick enough on his feet, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's definitely there's going to be some decisions made. You need to drop him back down to see if you can find something, but also you do need to be looking further ahead. And look, we've backed him over Stowers. We need him to find something, otherwise he's just going to be a non-valuable asset.
And it might be that they kept him because he was a number 2 draft pick, and they didn't want to trade the number 2 draft pick, which is. It doesn't feel like that's what they would make a decision based on that, because they are so analytical. At the same token, Stowers had a lot of chances and not had a lot of chances, but he'd had chances and not stuck. So they certainly did think that Kerstad still does have the higher ceiling. And as I said, I think if you can find that Ryan O'Hearn room for him where he's not playing the outfield every day, then we might see him getting a bit more confident, and we'll find that out. Hopefully we'll find that out by this time next year.
And obviously we've mentioned Stowers, the Trevor Rogers, who we got in that trade.
Yeah, that was an interesting thing from Jacob, that he expects he was obviously impressed with Rogers, as we all were. I'm sure he was on the ground, so even more impressed. My feeling, he certainly thinks that Rogers is coming back up this weekend. He's not been announced they've announced the starters. He's not one of them, so there's not a TBD. So possibly he's not this weekend unless something happens to somebody. But watching Povich last night, unfortunately, as good as he was at the start of the game, it's just been all too common to see him have those innings where he's been looking good, he's getting people out, he's getting strikeouts, and then I don't know whether it's concentration or fatigue or guys work him out because they've seen him a couple of times, but he just has this habit of throwing in a 3-run inning and getting bogged down and not getting through where he should be getting into the sixth and pitching into seventh with his stuff. So my suspicion is that they maybe give Povich one more shot, and then I think Rodgers would get that opportunity. That's my feeling at the moment. I think if we had more options in April when everybody was struggling, I think Povich would have been one that made way for somebody, but we just couldn't afford to do that because we didn't have any depth or we were trying to get Kyle Gibson into the games. So my suspicion is that, again, just from a performance point of view, if Rodgers does have something that he showed in Boston, then we're going to try and see if it's available to us the rest of this season, and we can still keep Povich. I suspect Povich's stuff would play very well out of the pen because he does have these dominant innings where he'll get two strikeouts quite comfortably. But I don't think we'll use him at the pen. I think we'll put him in Norfolk and keep him built up as a starter because at some point we'll need him again. That's my feeling that we'll see what happens. He wouldn't be due to start in the White Sox series anyway, but he'd be due to start, I think, Tuesday of next week. So we'll see what happens if they start him and then option him and bring Rodgers up or do a shuffle. I think Rodgers will certainly pitch well enough. We know that he's a kind of Mike Elias pick, and Mike will want to show that has not been a waste of a trade, which a lot of people are calling it currently. And who knows? I don't think Rodgers has a high ceiling, but I think he's got a higher ceiling than Povich has this year, given what we've seen. I mean, we've now seen a lot of Cade Povich, and he's basically a 5 ERA player. So he's got to get better, unfortunately. Yes, he might not do that in Norfolk, but we've also got games and we've got other players in the roster.
Yeah, I think I agree with what you're saying there about Povich. He could be good. It could be key coming out of the bullpen, but I think they'll send him back down to Norfolk, try and build him up and keep him working as a starter, and just try and whatever. I don't know whether you said whether it's fatigue or whether it's a kind of. Is it a mental block with him? Because it always seems to happen. That's why I said maybe he needed a mound visit earlier on just to kind of remind him, look.
And to be fair to Povich, I mean, I was looking at his numbers because obviously we're talking about sending him down. You want to have a reason to send him down, and you shouldn't be doing it on the back of one start. But although he had as I said, it was so frustrating because he looked so good at the start of that game last night, but ended up giving up 5 earned runs in 4 2/3. But previous start in Boston was five innings, 1 earned run, excellent, and then the one before that was 5 2/3 against Washington for 2 earned runs. So I mean, you'd take that absolutely, but there's been too many where he's given up 5, 6, 7 runs. And that's why his ERA is where it is now. As I say, I don't know that they're going to do this. I just suspect that if you were going to make a move and get Rodgers back in, he's the one that's a candidate that's not made himself, immovable. Unfortunately, you can say Kramer's not done that much more, but I think I'm going to keep Kramer and put Povich down. As I said, possibly next week, but we'll see how that unfolds.
Do you think Povich? Obviously, we're not in the position. Do you think Povich will have that on his mind? Look, I've got one more. I've possibly got one more bad start in me, and then Trevor's right behind me.
That's baseball, isn't it? There's very few players on any roster that are not going to get replaced or could not be replaced at some point. There's maybe 3 or 4 total. So. Yeah, certainly the guys that got options. It's not a critical thing. You're not you're not saying it's going to be a difference maker for the season, but at the same time, you're a sports organisation. You've got to be looking at getting the results where they're available. And Rodgers is on the roster as well. He's getting paid money, so you've got to see if he's got something. There's no point just leaving him as a spot starter if there's nobody that's doing better than him on the active roster. So we'll see how that happens, if that does materialise next week.
So on to next week. It's the battle of two teams that are absolutely soaring, is not the word. Struggling this season. We know the White Sox's struggles. We go into this series. I've said it. Every series is a must win now, but we can't lose this series, can we? Can we get swept? Well, how do you see this going?
So the White Sox, as I said, they've certainly had slightly better pitching than hitting. Their big hitter was Mike Tauchman, who was doing really well. He's been put in the IL. Andrew Benintendi, obviously a name that we've seen and heard, being around a lot of clubs. He's having an average season by his standards, so he's the only guy that's really getting money that I can think of in their lineup. 234 average. It wouldn't be good for us if we couldn't raise our game to beat them. Eflin going for us Friday night. He needs a bounce back. He did settle down after his bad first inning, but his ERA is still up to 5.4. We've then got Kramer, that we know has been hot or cold, but he is up against probably one of their better pitchers, Davis Martin, who is rocking a 3.45 ERA. So another right-handed pitcher, which is good, given what we've discussed. And then Sunday we'll get Charlie Morton back out there, so we'll see if he can back up what he did for us on Monday night. That's going to be important, because I don't think Charlie Morton is going to come off this roster. I doubt he's going to get traded either, but you never know. If somebody comes up the right package and is, we might even cover the salary for it. So we do need a series win. I think it would be unthinkable to not at least win the series, but nothing's guaranteed, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, just looking, obviously they beat the Mets last night 9-4. That was the last game of that series. They took the series against the Rangers, and then before that they'd had a 5-game losing streak, got swept by the Cubs, got beat by the Mariners 2-1. But they've picked up wins at the Reds, beat the Marlins earlier on the season. They took the series in Houston as well against the Astros. So it is tough. They've had Grant. The reliever Castro went down in the 9th the other day. So obviously the short of their reliever. Look, series is a must win. Every series is between now and the end of the season, but I think this more so just because of how poor both organisations have been, but how poor historically the White Sox have been. I think it'd be an embarrassment. Yeah.
I think from a psychological point of view, if nothing else, we need to be winning that. So we'll not get much more to add really on the White Sox, except that if we turn up, we should beat them, but we still need to turn up, and with the right mentality. It would be bad for morale, certainly, if we were to get turned over the weekend, certainly.
Just one last thing, kind of to do with the White Sox when we're on it. Obviously, they saw it was yesterday. Tim Anderson was DFA'd by the Angels. How much of a fall from grace is that from him, considering obviously what he did at the White Sox, hitting walk-offs, and then goes to LA and he's now being DFA'd.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't expect you to know. It's something that I remember seeing last night. I was thinking, with the White Sox coming up, it'd just be something to.
I mean, it just shows you how quickly things turn round. Certainly none of us expected Austin Slater to be back at the White Sox and doing okay with them.
Yeah.
So these things happen. I'm sure. Well, I'm not sure, but he may well turn up somewhere else, Tim Anderson, and somebody will give him another chance. But I think if you've been DFA'd from the Angels, then you're struggling.
Yeah. So, look, I think that is near the us. Before we finish, Grant, obviously we'd like to try and finish on a positive. What is your positive from obviously the series this week against the Cardinals?
Yeah, so I'm going to go with Mountcastle. He was really good. A lot of hits, back and forth.
You took mine. I'm going to surprise you. You took my pick because I've been voted on, but I was impressed with him.
Well, I can go. Well, you go again. I've got somebody else because I'll quickly.
No, you can have Mountcastle. I was going to go with my boy Jackson again.
Well, as you know and you pointed out, Colton Cowser had a very good day at the plate for Norfolk.
Yeah, I think he was.
So in game one, which is finished, at one point he was 3 for 3.
Yeah, I think he finished 3 for 4. All 3 hits were doubles.
Yeah.
He had an RBI, and then
Westberg 1 for 3. They are now in the middle of game 2 of the double header. And is he playing? Neither of them are playing.
I didn't think he'd play them back to back on the first.
I think your positive could be Cowser is back tomorrow night.
Do you think he's back that quick?
Well, I mean, he was only a thumb. It wasn't like he was.
Yeah, not like Westberg's hamstring, is it?
I'm sure he's still training, lifting weights, etc. So, I wouldn't be surprised if he's back tomorrow night in Baltimore.
Where do you think they'll slot him in that lineup?
I think they will slot him in at left field. I think they will shuffle Carlson to right field, and he's probably going to bat 7th or 8th or 9th probably because of the lineup, but that's the way it goes. We'll see how that goes if it does happen tomorrow. I don't think he's far away though. If he's getting that kind of performance, and he's fit and healthy, what's he going to do in AAA for another few days?
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah, no, Jackson Holiday for me again. I should be getting fed up of saying his name by now because I say it every day. But
that's why you take a number 1 pick, and that's why we have to be optimistic and we have to have a plan for next season because
he's just
this guy. We might well have Sam Gonzalo. Yeah. So.
But yeah, so look, we'll be back Tuesday morning with another episode. We'll look obviously at the White Sox series. Any more talking points? Probably Cowser's return, as Grant said. We've been O's Across the Pond. I've been Thomas. Grant, thank you very much.
Thank you again.
Okay, bye now.
Bye.
That's it for this episode of O's Across the Pond, bringing Birdland to Europe one episode at a time. Be sure to subscribe, share and follow along as we keep the Orioles conversation going from this side of the Atlantic. Until next time, stay loud, stay proud and let's go O's.